Welcome, everybody. Let's start this meeting. So the minutes from last meeting. Do you have any comments on the agenda or the minutes from last meeting?
Oh, do we need to adopt the agenda for this one?
Oh. Right. Anything to do?
I'll move to
I move in a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. Yeah. Number 2 on. All right, so we have the minutes from the last meeting on the 19th. Need to approve those, or do we have any comments on?
The only comment I had was on the last page. Tim asked how the proposed budget accounted for inflation, and Dan said that it's done by the fund transfers are for, and Hannah said contingencies. I probably said general fund, but I could
What do you want it to say?
I don't know what I said, so I'm just asking for it. Just clarification. I'll move to accept the minutes from the 19th.
I'll second.
The approval of minutes, I move in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And Katie did ask, she had a hard time hearing some people, so if you could speak up, she's still not able to be here in person, but she did say she was having a hard time hearing.
I'll move it closer to you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is go over any the budget revisions, if any, and so turn that over to the business manager, Ray.
Okay, so I have in your packet pages that did change. When you hit one change, it seems to give you several pages that messes up, so, or changes. So we have page 10, which is your other pretty whole bunch of hoping you could just replace them in your binder.
Great, thank you.
And
Thanks for that. Last bit of multiple binders was so hard. Thank you.
Anyway, so number 10 changed because we noticed from the state, we noticed an error on our October 1st enrollment. So I did adjust 10 and 11th grade for the October 1st, 2021 enrollment to be one less for each grade level, bringing that down to 304. So, and then our estimate, everything else on this page stayed the same. Our estimate, we still have is 314. That's the only thing that changed on that page. Page,
I'm sorry, I'm not following very well. So what changed on this page?
under the 21-22 October 1st enrollment, we just went back and looked and it had changed on the 10 and 11th graders from 27 back down to 26 from 20 to 15, bringing our total on that first enrollment to the state at 304. So the next page would be 15. Let me go, no, I want to do that first. So 15 is on the page, so the 80,000, we changed out of the Fund 404. I actually just removed 404 and we moved it into Fund 250, which we'll go over those in more detail, but I'm just stating where it's going and coming out of. Moving out 80,000, moving out of Fund 400, going into Fund 250. And then also there was a CTE construction that was actually coded to 1131, which is high school instruction, and it was more or less coded, supposed to be coded to.
I'm lost already.
Page 15?
15, but I'm just stating why it's changed.
I'm looking for the change.
So I see that,
So-
okay.
Also, this page is your second to last page in your packet.
It says page 15.
Oh, yeah, I know, but this page, that might be helpful
Okay,
to
so
look
what
at.
page are we dealing with? Page 15?
15, but this
15?
is a sideline, that is not page number.
Or where does it belong?
It doesn't have a page number, it's just going to show you, as a guide. And it's the last, second to last page.
I'm sorry, I'm giving you a lot more detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a side page that's just here to support the changes.
Yeah,
So what is changed on page 15?
okay, so on page 15, you'll see in capital projects, it went down by 80,000. And in the 400 fund expenditures by function, that 8 million went down 480,000. It was moved over to special revenues fund 4,000. Land that was happening, and you're removed it, and I reallocated it, and all over that maintenance page.
Where was it moved to? I'm not seeing it.
We'll go over that slide later, I'm just gonna,
Oh, so it's not on this
it's
page.
not detailed, it is on this page, but it's not in detail, so you can actually pick it out very easily.
So where's that increase at?
The increase is in the 4,000 function, under 782,000, 200 special revenue fund.
Okay, thank you.
It's higher by the 223,640 as well, and it removes, the instructional on that is lowered. So,
Why? There's instructional for purchasing land?
no, I was trying to explain on this adjustments that I had 223 in SIA under high school instructional, and it was actually designated for capital projects for the CT classrooms.
Correct.
So I put it under the 4,000 function, it should have been under the 4,000 function.
So that's why it went up by so much?
Yes.
These two reasons.
Yeah, the 80,000 and the 223,000.
And that's covered when you get to page 90, right? On the,
Yeah.
on the
It's
258.
covered a little more later, so
It
you'll
was
hear me
just-
repeat it.
In the wrong place, it just changed 258 and they just moved.
Correct.
it to the right
For the
one.
function, yes, which is very important.
Yeah. Got it.
So, that was page 15. Page 16 is just a reconciliation. It shows you the same idea of change.
Question, Larry, was there a reason for putting the 80,000 into 250 versus putting it back into cash carryover?
We'll go over the maintenance project in a little.
Okay, because it just says miscellaneous capital maintenance, so, okay. Got it. We'll go over it when we get there. It says other, sorry, not miscellaneous, other. It doesn't designate it, it says other.
So page 16 is just showing you that I did remove 404. So that's, the end balance didn't change, of course, when I moved the 80,000 to Fund 250. Fund 250 is now 472,000. That's the only change on that page. Page 19, of course, it's the general fund transfer. It didn't end up changing the end value, but it
I'm
changed,
so sorry, I'm waiting.
Oh.
My I'm on page 17, so it shows the capital improvement went from,
It removed 404, it's no longer on the
I see
page.
404 is gone.
And so then 250
Yes. Oh, 250, facility improvement.
was increased by, the 80,000.
Okay, but not the other, because
The other was in the
it's
same
still,
fund.
yep,
Yeah,
okay.
so that was just a reflection on the function side.
Okay. Sorry I'm slow on this.
No.
I've been at work since 4:30 this morning, so I'm kind of tired.
Okay, page 19 was the general fund transfers, still at 678,000, transferring from the general fund to the special revenue fund. And you'll see that it is increased to 250, facility improvement increased to 342. So that increased to 80,000.
Okay.
And now in more detail, page 73 and 90. So 73 is fund 250.
Okay, let me get there. Okay.
And it increased your capital outlay to 445. Should only be your 80,000 change. Fund 258, page 90. That's where you're gonna see the 1131 high school instructional actually gone off the new page. And, supposed to go to facility acquisition and instruction function. And so that is the 223. It's no longer. Okay. Down to the 4,000 function. So this is an easy to see. I just removed the title. And it's gone. So we only have 3 funds now still in our capital project.
So which page?
Page 101.
Okay. Let's see that.
Page 116 is changed because of the date, which is today's date, as April 19th last time. And so in case this budget is approved tonight, I changed it to May 2nd.
119? 119,
115.
Okay.
You guys don't have?
I have one.
I just have what was emailed out. I didn't look at what you had out. but
The one that you just.
It wasn't in
It just
the email.
changed the date.
Oh, that's fine. It just wasn't in the email.
It's not. Sorry, that's
Sorry, I printed them out.
So 116 is changed. So 119 is our resolution that will happen. So that changes when you change the function and the fund. So you'll see the change probably in capital project fund should have gone down 80,000. And your special revenue fund facility acquisition should have also increased by your 223 plus your 80,000. So it increased to that 782,000.
So instruction went down too?
Oh, instruction went down by the 223, yeah.
Oh, because you had to move that one.
Got it. I moved it. The last page that's changed was 120, which was the maintenance / project listing. I changed it to reflect, the 80,000 as well as, I thought it was a good idea to put the CTE project construction from the CT program, CT grant for the 223 on a line item there. It wasn't before. So I thought, so then you can see down here the funds in which all these add up to hitting. The 472, the 5,000 in the athletics, 223 in SIA grant, and 88,000 in your, for the lighting, for his energy grant. And to sum all that up, your budget adjustments page shows you where we started with the original. You should probably copy these.
What page?
This is actually just a supplemental.
This one, the supplemental page.
Yeah, so it shows you your original proposed. And then it shows you, which fund to change. So it decreased instructional and increased facility on the special revenues. And it said down here on capital projects, it decreases 80,000 on the capital project. The end balance didn't change. So this is like, that's the summary of the changes. And then I also posted, I sent this email out for a request last time, the ADMW breakdown. Just for your review, if you have questions.
How about you just go over it with us?
Your ADMR is, okay, so on the 220, the 22-23, it starts with what we estimate in December as what our enrollment's gonna be at 314. That's what our estimate is. So we'll start with this side first, on the 22-23. Then you have weight for ESL program students. You have additional weight for, and it looks like it's capped at 11%, but anyway, 30 students could do an additional weight. Anything above the 11% of the IEP. Students in poverty gives you weight there. Foster children that selected is 2, gives you some weight. Remote elementary school correction and high school correction. So those are weights that are given. So you can see that 21, 22, if you want to look from the bottom up is about the same all the way until we dropped a little on our IEP from last year. And then dropped one on the ESL. And then our ADMR is lower. They do the extended ADMW, so that's why they have chose the ADMW weighted from 22-23. So they choose higher of the two.
What does IEP stand for?
Individual education
What is that for?
plan. Students. They need extra plans.
So what it's telling you is that we have 314 ADM that we estimated. And then they up that weight, and it's called weighted ADM. So ADMW is the weighted, and then they give us extra points, you might say, to make it be 459.
We do not have the postgraduate scholars, which is what some districts have done with the 5th year, where they go on to community college, but they don't really officially complete their program until after they do that, to get some of their college paid for. We should have that. Or other programs around here in Michigan.
So what then is the Oregon Department of Education fall membership report that's required by each school district? So the Oregon Department of Education requires school districts to report their enrollment numbers for state funding allocation as of October 1st. And as of October 1st, the numbers on the state website match, actually, ironically, what was in the board packet for the last 2 years. So do we just report those to the state in October for funding allocations, but we don't use them when we're calculating budget?
Okay, so I'm gonna just go over your question here.
Because I don't think
Same
that,
thing.
it wasn't very clear in my question, I don't think. I'm trying to figure out why we report in October to the state for state school fund allocations, but we don't use that number when we're looking, because we'd be way off from our
So-
budget.
We have to report to the state quarterly. We have first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter annual. And we do an estimate, because in December on our estimate of membership and revenue to the state. In
For
December, for the
estimate
next year.
For the next year.
For the next year. So that's
Okay.
what we always go off of to get the budget created from our state school.
Right. So the October is your actual, it's your lagging metric that you're reporting. But or not, it's not your lagging metric. So if you report your estimate in December, so that you can do your budgeting by budget time, by April,
Yeah.
then you have to go back and do a budget adjustment
Yeah,
with
there
the
will.
state based upon actual.
Yeah.
So for your 21-22 school year, which is what we're in, right? You would use the number of actual for October, which is what's in the state school fund allocation report.
No, October is more or less just
Do you use
showing you that for
average?
what
Do
we
you-
started our
so-
year with. our
So
first quarter.
what number does the state look back at and
They
say
go off the actual for annual.
average,
No,
mean?
actual.
So when you fluctuate, do they take your high, your low, your median, or your average?
When you fluctuate, they base your state school fund based on the higher of the last 2 years. But then they do a reconciliation that comes in May.
So when will we get nipped in the butt for the last 2 years of low enrollment, when we budgeted and taken money at 314, but we haven't been anywhere close? That's what I'm trying to get, I'm trying to figure out when the money is gonna catch up to us. Because we've taken money for students we don't have,
Yeah, you can see that.
right?
So you can see on this page 10, this is what they've been doing their actuals on, 314, 315, 313, 312, 315. Okay, and then 2021, we dropped for our actuals of 294. And then
That we
we will
budgeted
probably
at
drop for the
314.
actuals of this year.
Okay, so
So
So when will that differential
next
hit?
May, next May,
So we're gonna have a serious budget shortfall next year, because we budgeted at 314 and we had actuals reported at 294, right?
so it will
2021.
come in at a little lower, but, and my answer to your question also with about the shortfall, since our budget is, since our budget is based on adopted appropriation, which is your expenditures, the loss or gain of any revenues from the state school fund will be reflected in the next year's beginning fund balance. So you're lowering, your revenues are gonna come in lower, but it's gonna really affect your beginning fund balance. You won't have that revenue to use for the next year.
When is that gonna hit?
And that's gonna,
July 1 of 2023.
so you're gonna see that.
So when we do our budgeting
Next year.
we're gonna see a serious shortfall for 23, 24.
I don't know about the word serious, but we are gonna have to budget differently and be prepared for not as much funding.
So are we better off to anticipate that and cut and budget, I don't wanna say cut, but use the scalpel a little bit better now, knowing that we've over budgeted for our actual enrollment,
We have a pretty good contingency this year.
But we had the conversation at the last budget meeting about
That's
wanting
why
to
I
have the
would
con,
totally not recommend that
Okay.
idea.
which means that we can't do it again next year probably, because we're gonna be further behind than we had contingency this year. Correct.
So when I spoke with Morgan
Okay,
last week at a meeting, so it was face to face, and I explained the situation, went over everything. He anticipated it'd be about between 5 and 6, let's say 6 kids difference because of the extra revenue we're getting minus the amount of kids that we didn't have. He was guessing about 6.
even though your enrollment numbers for 2021 were 20 less than projected.
I'm going off what he said, with the weighting,
Okay.
not just the regular.
Right,
weighted.
right, but weighted, you have to have those kids in the weighted category,
So,
or you get the weight.
so that's what he said. I mean, he didn't do the whole analysis, but he just said that's what his best estimate would be. So we thought.
And other
Really
board
not
chairs have
giving
told me
conversation.
everybody's gonna be in this boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just really concerned.
Me too.
I mean, I'm genuinely concerned because we are spending this year. It's kind of like we got a bonus at work, and so we're gonna go on vacation with it. And I'm just concerned that maybe we don't go on vacation with it. Maybe we make sure that we're setting ourselves up for next year when it's gonna come back on us. And potentially other things are gonna come back on us. We're gonna have cost overruns on our bond, or we're gonna have facility issues that weren't anticipated. I'm not sure what the 80,000 is now for, it just says other.
I would need.
But maybe that 80,000 should go back into contingency for a, oh no, here comes next year down the pipe. And we're gonna have a brand new business manager next year. We're gonna throw that 80,000 into your salary and talk to the thing. But we're gonna have a new business manager, so I guess I just wanna continue to beat the drum of concern, because eventually we're gonna have some really ugly conversations, and I'd rather have delicate conversations now than ugly conversations next year.
Yeah, so I forgot to mention the other capital project use that we were gonna kind of go over for the
What
80
page?
Oh, yeah,
on 120.
the new one.
Because I put that there because I wanted it to be board action use. So that is for nothing besides if the board says this is what we need the money for in capital 250 fund. So it's not gonna be used, it doesn't have a designation. It doesn't have like, this is for the sidewalk or this is for the, so that's why it's the other.
So it could be used for cost overrun on, or bond, or cost overrun
Well,
on
that's- yeah.
CPU building, or cost overrun on anything that falls within Fund 250.
Or it could
It's
be
better
not
to-
used at all,
Or it cannot be used,
Yeah, correct.
and then
And
it
it's-
would go back.
and it's the board action.
So that's why I labeled
That
it
way you
there.
don't have to have it stuck in cash carryover, and you don't have to do a supplemental budget to use it for a specific project.
There you go.
So on the,
I'm still concerned, but
on the,
I feel better.
on the big project, the KMGC project, right? So they gave you a GMP.
We have it for the seismic one, yes.
Okay, so part of the GMP, there should be contractor contingency,
There is.
Okay.
and then there's also owner's contingency.
Correct.
And so, what happens if they use all their contractor contingency and you use all your owner's contingency, because the cost of materials and everything's overrunning right now? What would fund the rest of the project if you, how much did you allocate in owner's contingency to support the contract?
10%.
About 10%. And if that isn't adequate, then how do we finish the project?
Then we have other areas in there too. So for example, we have a furniture fund that we wouldn't necessarily have to use, which with the state, you can also get reimbursed for some of that furniture. But you don't want to count on that necessarily.
So you start eliminating scope.
We've already done that. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I guess, I understand Anna's concern is, you said we have a lot of contingency funds, or
Well,
an adequate amount
Operating.
for the general fund.
Yeah.
But this isn't normal times right now. Like in past years, what seems like is the appropriate amount. It's just with fuel going up, heating going up, everything going up. It seems like we don't have as much contingency as we had last year, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it-
It went down a little bit, but pretty close.
It's pretty close. I guess the thing is the excess contingency that's not used gets transferred to the general fund for the next year. Is that right? Or is it just carry over as contingency?
Those for the next year.
Goes into the next
If
year.
you're not using it.
Okay.
So it's not
It's not a use it
appropriate.
or lose it. It's
No, yeah.
No, I know, we don't lose it, but it's just, I agree that if we're gonna lose students and all of a sudden we don't get as much funding,
what we have. I'm looking backwards.
Yeah.
actually.
then I can see the merit of wanting to plan for it to have the softest impact as possible instead of just the sledgehammer approach. Oh crap, we got, and I don't even know how many dollars we're talking that we may not get compared to what we're getting now.
That would be about If you look at about 6 students for the comparisons, what he said,
And how much per student?
that would
do we
be
get
about 9,500.
per student?
Yeah.
So it's about 60,000,
Yeah.
60,000?
The good thing is the budget, the state school fund allocation is set aside for the biennium ending in 2023. So any risk of funding, well, it's not a good thing. Any risk of funding for 2023 going forward will be set by the 2023 legislature for the next 2023 to 2025. So if they have to make budgetary cuts, then that's gonna roll downhill and you're behind because they're gonna take back what you allocated and you didn't have head count for, plus you're gonna get a shorter allocation for your next biennium. That's your doomsday scenario right there.
Yeah.
And I'm, with the economy the way it is and inflation and potentially having to fund mandatory paid healthcare statewide as a state budget prior to funding education, if it's passed by the voters, and I'm really nervous about state school funding. I'm just gonna say.
So it's, I mean, what tools do we have to soften the blow? I mean,
We don't go on vacation. I mean,
So what do you feel like in the budget that we're going on vacation?
the things I asked about last week,
Mostly sports.
just interfund transfers in general. I mean, the things I've asked about for a long time. We actually cut way back on supplies. If you look at the allocations by function, we cut back on the supply budget, which is probably closer to actual. I mean, for years, we way over, but I beat that drum 10 years ago. We went over budget supplies, which was fine. We didn't spend it. It rolled back into contingency. But when Julie was here, I was preaching budget to actual, get as tight as you can so you really know what your spending is. You don't budget $1,000 a month for groceries when you know that you really only spend $700. You budget what you know you're at so that when you have to dig, you have the savings account to dig from. I'm worried about sustainability in the interfund transfer amounts. They're huge. I'm not saying we cut things. I'm just saying I'm worried about it. And then I'm worried about the fact that the ADM eventually is going to come home and hit us. And when it does hit us, it potentially has the time to hit us when budget cuts are going to be happening across the board at every state agency in the next biennium budget 23 to 25.
And I think and we hear you on that, and that's why Lorraine was trying to do it where it would take board action in order to do any of that. So
So it could be
that way
anywhere
it could
from
be back into
60
contingency.
to 180,000 in deficit. We'll have that 80,000 that we're looking at. But, the board, I think, is very conservative and focused. I think the administration is. And there's, we're not gonna go over on our project. The reality is we will cut both the work. So, we plan on having a very similar contingency when we go to budget next year. And that way, or even greater, and that way we'll be able to handle whatever cut may and probably will come. I don't think that we should over concern and say, 70, 80, 700 or 800, 850,000 in contingency, and then now we have all this money and we've kept services and opportunities for kids this year. I don't think that we should do that. I think that we're, in general, a pretty transparent and open district. I think the budget's pretty solid. It does have fluff built into it, which is the thing I absolutely hate the most, but it's how schools operate, and I'm just learning to read it and understand it better. I'm pretty confident, and I feel good about the budget. I understand the 314, but I feel like we need to budget there and fill our classrooms back up. We may or may not. And then in that case, just like this year, we didn't spend all our money. Just like this year, we didn't spend all our money. So if we don't fill our classrooms up, and it's January, the board will be talking about making sure that the new business manager, and I know Lorraine will be available for a phone call then.
She's changing her number when she leaves.
I know that we'll get really conservative at that time as well, more conservative than we typically are, and Perryville has a history of caring about the community and caring about the school. I don't think that this budget reflects that we're not.
So that's the case family leave. Is that, okay.
It's in this budget.
It's in this budget, yeah.
Since that starts
January 1st, yep. You want it repealed? Is that what you said? Oh, we'd all love that. I don't think that's gonna happen.
What was that, Dan? You wanna go on record and say that?
I did not say anything.
I heard it. Come on, buddy, I heard it.
I did forget to mention, in the question that was from Anna, just that the monthly reports going to the board are not gonna match the quarterly and annual. First of all, the monthly, but also these quarterly reports, they take into student count, times session days, times how many per grade level were present, right, and how much absence, giving us an ADM kind of, per student.
And that was the student enrollment report that I
Yes.
pulled. I was just curious
It's not weighted.
what we, yeah, I just wanted to see what we actually can get, because all I can get is the aggregated, from the state. Like, well, I shouldn't say aggregated, I can get it by school district from the state, it's not that aggregated, but, it still doesn't, it still doesn't make me feel any more comfortable with our budgetary numbers, so. One more quick question on this sheet, Lorraine. The IEPs, I know we're capped at 11% per district, which actually is something I would love to get changed at the state level, because I think that that sells our small districts and actually most districts short, because most districts have 14% or higher on IEPs. But can we bump that up? Because if we are budgeting at 314, 11% is 34. Why do we only have it at 30?
For 30 students and on IEP.
So for 2023,
That's
we budgeted less than we had this year.
We, in this number goes to the state, and that's how much I asked our Fed director, kind of give her input.
That's the number we
That's
have,
kind of the
correct,
number.
Karen?
That is correct.
So we, okay. So we estimate our enrollment, but we actualize our IEP.
Well, we estimated what it may be next year, looking at where each kid is grade wise, and thought that's pretty accurate for the estimate.
Okay. And for enrollment, I actually make sure I talk to the superintendent and.
So that's the
they
projected,
want-
yeah. The desired, yeah. Okay. Okay. So even more money.
Is it likely that there'll be more students coming in, or what's the projection? Yeah.
Those are your standard questions.
Do you want me to talk about small school versus small class size? So that you know. Because we actually have larger classes than surrounding districts. So go ahead.
So yes, that's what we anticipate. Again, the number that's been consistent before we had the COVID time has been, we are, and a lot of the classes that we have smaller numbers, except for next year's senior class. We feel pretty good about being able to put some of the students in those classrooms. Again, I would talk with, in this case, Ray, I definitely would talk with Mrs. Ford, see where she is, and then we'd look at with also Mrs. Henry about some of the concerns we may have if we have to move around instructional assistants to support students that may have IEPs or just students who may just need support their classrooms in general. So not all classes are equal. I get that. We have had one class that had 33 once here years ago, but we've also had some classes that have 17.
And that class was graded 33, that my son's class would not have been graded 33. That's why we really appreciate that our administration talks to each of the teachers, looks at the dynamics of the classroom, looks at the energy level of the kids and their special needs, and then makes decisions more individually based.
And this year, we could have more kindergarten kids in here. We could have at least had another 5 kids, but at the time with some of the uncertainty, and there were a lot of people that didn't want to send their kids to school with masks on, especially kindergarten age that hadn't done it very much before, et cetera. The board decided, with us that we would maintain, keep our numbers where they were. And we didn't
And
do
with our
any,
teacher assistants.
yeah, and we didn't talk with, or we didn't, what the board tradition is called backfill. We didn't backfill those numbers once students have left.
We hate that term.
Well, I'm just saying that's what has been used or for those decisions. So the students that were coming and going through, moving in and out of the district, or moving in and out of the area, they may be out of the district, but they moved to Idaho or they moved to wherever. Those are the students that kind of came with it.
Okay.
And technically, we can't, with the law states that we have to do open enrollment, set the numbers one time per year, just as an educational point. We have
Yeah, we
to
have
set
to set
those
the
numbers
number.
one time per year and stay with that.
Yeah, I think you can, I haven't looked at it because it hasn't been an issue, but
I don't
that
think you can
put
adjust
it-
it.
Yeah.
No, but I
have
think you
to set
can
by
put
name.
that, so if you had 25, or say 25 kids in the class and 4 left, because there was a group
You
of
could
4
open back
sitting,
up,
then you could
There's
take
the
the next
term
one
I
on that
don't like.
lottery list.
backfill to get back.
That's what I was saying.
You can go back to
That's why I said
lottery.
backfill. So then that would be the number again. So that's what that's what I think you would still have that number that was set ridiculous.
And traditionally, that's a cooperative conversation between the administration and the board if we're gonna open our lottery back up and take any students in to replace those who may have left.
Does that happen mid-school year or is it?
We've
At
done
least
it
in
a couple of
summertime.
times.
But they have to follow the law, the number that's set in May. So let's say they say we're gonna take 24 kids in first grade, and we have 12 open spots. Well, then district kids, 12 out of district. We'll go to the lottery, draw 12 kids. And then in December, 12 kids leave. They can go back to the lottery list and draw 12 more. They can't go back to the lottery list and draw 16 more because they've set their class ratio.
And I think we have to open it up that we're accepting lottery and allow new people at that time. It has to be a fair lottery and not an old lottery.
So 18-month process.
Yeah.
Not really.
Too bad we didn't put a sunset on that law. Stuck. We
There
can
was
fix
a
it, though.
first, there was
was
a
a
first,
first.
and then they extended it permanently.
Yeah.
What other questions do you folks have? Katie, do you have any questions too? You can type them if you want me to ask them. Oh,
I'm good right now.
okay.
She's on
you.
painkillers. Katie said.
So are we in public comment and or questions right now? Or still on budget revision?
No, we're in public comment.
Ray, can we get the slideshow?
Actually, just post that to the website like a half hour ago.
Okay, okay,
So
because I was
check.
looking, when the minutes came out, I was looking for it, and then I was also, did the budget on the website as well?
What?
Is there a budget on the website
Yes,
as well?
our
Is
proposed
that now?
budget, and all I did for now is I posted the changes, the change.
Because I didn't see it either.
No, I just did that.
Okay. Perfect.
Does anybody else have any comment or questions?
Potential action, so you can ask if anybody wants to make a motion for the proposed budget.
No one else has any questions? We're good? All right, so the next section is potential actions. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the proposed budget?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion. I think the budget's really good and solid at this time. I'll move to approve the proposal budget for 22-23 school year.
Do we have a second? Can I can second, all right?
Yeah.
All right, I second. Motion. So we have a Motion and a second. All in favor of approving the proposed 22-23 budget?
Go ahead and ask for more questions at this time on the proposal.
Anybody have any more questions?
I guess my question is, does anybody feel that we need to talk about this more? Is there areas of concern that you feel like we should talk about at this meeting and get back to Lorraine to work on?
I will be a courtesy yes on budget, but I have, this is the first year I think I've ever yes on budget. But I have serious concerns. And I'm really scared for next year. So, but I will be a courtesy yes to move it forward. To the full board.
That's kind of where I'm at. I have a lot of faith in our school board and Dan, that you guys went through and put together appropriate budget. I manage projects a lot for a living, and I always try to think of what, when I'm doing projects, I never want to get asked the question, well, why didn't you think of that before? Like the rain part one, but I concerned about the budget next year. With this budget, you know, I learned last year it looks solid. It's within my expectations.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Lorraine at this moment while we're having a conversation. It's probably one of the cleaner budgets and the easiest for me to follow. So if I can tie you to your desk and not let you leave, I will do it.
Can we mandate that can the board mandate that the next business manager carry the format forward?
Yeah.
So that we don't have like another format, because every
Yeah.
business manager brings their own format and it's almost impossible anymore to match them up.
We'll just inform the new person we'd like to take.
This is one
So
of the
much
easiest
easier.
ones to read. I don't like the roll-ups, but that's just me because I like details underneath functions, but it is what it is.
I'm in the same boat.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that because I know you're higher than this kid.
I'm not. Who's doing that?
I think I just volunteered for it. I'm gonna hold you to that.
I delegated to 2 other board members who have a lot more knowledge in that area than me.
Okay, you're in charge then.
Any more comments or questions, or should we move to a vote? All right, again, we need to vote on approving the 22-23 budget. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, John.
Oh,
Yeah, you ready for me to read? This is after it's approved though, right?
Motion to approve the proposed budget. Motion to approve.
We have set it to the board.
We need,
Right, doesn't he do that after our vote? Correct. He does this after our vote.
further approve this. Because you're approving the tax levy
Correct.
on.
Correct. He has to read it after. our vote.
We have ayes, right?
Yeah,
We can do nays.
yeah, we need to do that. Was that it? Aye?
I was an aye, yeah, it
Okay.
scared Cindy, but it was an aye.
I jumped in.
all right, any opposed, say nay. All right. The budget passes unanimously. I'll read this. Be it hereby resolved that the Budget Committee of Perrydale School District Number 21 approves the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 in the sum of $17,382,913, and that the Budget Committee further approves the taxes to be levied for Perrydale School District Number 21 as follows. General Fund Operation for Education, $4.5657 per thousand of assessed value. Excluded from limitation, $200,000 for payment of bonded debt. Approved at the meeting held on the second day of
You have an extra.
So we are, this time I don't have to say recess, I can say it. All right, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Lorraine, because Amber wasn't here, can we make sure that she's got all